カメラ映ってんのこれ。映ってんのもう声入ってます Hi everyone, this is Christina, the Developer Relations Program Manager in Japan from Microsoft. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first ever attempt to do bilingual online event. And today we are really honored to have Taiki Yoshida, Senior Program Manager from Microsoft. He is the expert of Power Apps and Power Platform in general. So he will guide you through a really exciting world of Power Apps. And we're also very honored to be delivering this event in partnership with Glug Tokyo. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the next 2 hours. And I'll pass it to the organizers of Glug Tokyo. John, would you like to introduce Glug Tokyo?
Hi, this is John. I'm the host from Glug Tokyo. Glug is an event space from London, or rather, an event organizer from London. And this year in January, Glug Tokyo was opened as the 45th chapter of the Glug chapters around the world. And Glug events connects tech people and creative people through events. We hope you enjoy our first event of the year and our first event in Tokyo. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Taiki, the Senior Program Manager for the Power Platform Engineering team. Today, I would like to introduce you to the world of the Power Platform. So I hope people who hasn't ever come across Power Apps or the Power Platform, I hope you enjoy the whole of this session today. So I'm going to start with an introduction about what we believe as Microsoft of what the Power Platform is and what our vision is. And then we'll be going into the hands-on session 30 minutes into the around 8 p.m. Japan time. Okay, so starting off a bit of background. So every company wants to digitally transform. It's about 90% of the business leaders in the digital transformation see that it's a way of sparking innovation and finding inefficiencies. And 85% say they actually need to offer digital services, or they have to be completely relevant from the service completely, so that they don't get involved in the digital world at all. So it's one or the other. So what we do as the, Microsoft is we try to provide tech intensity to the whole of the world. And to do that, we believe that every device, including the laptops, computers, smartphones, iPhones, as such, as the intelligent edge, and we gather all of the telemetry data into our cloud, Microsoft Azure, as the intelligent cloud to become more productive. And to do that, we believe that we need to increase a thing called the tech intensity. This was something that our CEO, Satya Nadella, announced last year in Ignite 2019, where he had said the tech intensity is the combination of 3 different things. First is the tech adoption. So if we don't have the tech adoption by the end users, there's no way of increasing the tech intensity. And the second point was about the tech capabilities, where we need to also have the skill sets to be able to deliver technology. And combined with these two, we also need the trust, which is the security side of things. And having all these 3 aspects finally gets us into increasing the tech intensity. So as Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And within our portfolio, we have a set of services to provide this tech intensity. So today, we're going to talk about the Power Platform. And the Power Platform has this vision for the citizen developers to achieve more. So when we talk about citizen developers, we're talking people who usually work with Excel or PowerPoint or all those kind of standard office kind of softwares and services, and not like a Visual Studio Code and everything like that. But we also obviously believe that developers also can use this Power Platform as well. And I'll talk to you more deeply about that as well. So when we think of an IT department, when people like end users think of an IT department, they believe that they need to wait for this long queue of different problems that they have in their business, and they have to wait for this long queue to be able to have the IT team solve their business issues. Well, it's starting to come to this reality where the IT department no longer can cover all of the needs of the business users, and that's why we have this vision to have citizen developers to be able to then solve these problems themselves by self-services. And as a matter of fact, Power Platform was launched around 3 years ago. And we already have these so-called developers, and we actually have 2.5 million developers around the world already using our Power Platform. So going into a little bit more detail about what Microsoft Power Platform is, we have 4 different services that we provide amongst the Power Platform. And starting from the left, Power BI is the business analysis. So it's a self-service business analysis tool. And then the second one is the PowerApps, which we'll be talking and having a hands-on more about today, which is the application development platform for every user. And then we also have Power Automate, the third point, which is the workflow automation to automate the business. And then the fourth one, last but not least, is the Power Virtual Agents, which allows people to make intelligent virtual agents themselves to solve FAQs and things like that. And that was launched last year in back in September, I think, in Ignite. So all of these 4 different platforms have this common vision to empower every person to become a developer using local digital transformations. And these tools are then backed up by these services on the bottom. One is called Common Data Service, which allows you to collect all of the data into one single place, to collect all of the business data into place. And then you have this thing called the data connectors, which allow you to then connect with external services, not just Microsoft services, but also things like Salesforce or Oracle or SAP. All of our other data can then be integrated together as well. We also have this third part called AI Builder, which allows you to basically have AI models using this tool without any actual skill sets of becoming an AI data scientist. So this is the view of the Power Platform. And by using this Power Platform, I want to talk to you a little bit about how the democratizing technology can transform the career. So first off, I want to talk about the case of if the citizen developer uses the platform, what would actually happen. So the first scenario I want to talk to you about is this person called Samit. I want to show you this video to start off with. So as you've seen in this video, Samit from London Heathrow Airport, he was a security officer, but through PowerApps and self-learning, he was able to change his career as an IT adoption user specialist at Heathrow, now working as an IT team instead of working as a security officer. So as you can see, this is just tip of the iceberg regards to how digitally transformed Power Platform can do. And I want to give you another example from this guy called Mr. Dang. So Mr. Dang, 3 years ago, was a primary school teacher, elementary school teacher in the US, California. And what he used to do was to teach kids for around 8 years old and 9 years old. And what he had was a problem that if he wanted to submit a paid leave, he had to have some substitute teacher instead. And to do that, he had to always come up with the substitute plans, which he had to write about the status of his students, and also to have a list of all the tasks that the substitute teacher can do for the next day. So to do that, he used to be writing 3 hours, 4 hours of this plan for this substitute teacher. And so in effect, it was kind of taking up half of his time before he could even take a leave. So what he's done was then use Excel and Word as a template to actually automate some of his substitute plans. So what he did was then use the Word templates, which filled in actually 75% of the plan automatically. So now he could spend only about an hour and actually work on the plan. So that's reduced the time significantly. So he already had this a passion to learn a lot of the things, and he really wanted to actually even step up and start making apps for his classroom and things. But then he also had a set of excuses which kind of didn't lead him into becoming a developer at the same time as becoming a teacher. And the reason being was, firstly, well, he had this excuse that he thought that he didn't have enough time to work on it and study about it. So obviously, becoming a teacher, spent hours and hours every day, even after school, to prepare for the next day and such. So there's a lot of time that's already being in place. So there's not enough time to learn something new. And he also felt that it was not his job. Firstly, he didn't become a teacher because he wants to be a developer. He wants to become a teacher so he can teach kids. So that was the other thing. And he also felt, although he's still in his 30s, he thought it was too late compared with freshmen out of college. So that was also a thing. It just wasn't for him to learn a proper coding and development. But then he finally had this chance of meeting PowerApps and to be empowered with this less code and more power vision. And what he was saying was you need to provide yourself permission to learn and take some time off, not just work on the day-to-day work, but to also give your permission to do extra bits and pieces and invest on your time to be more skilled. So what he did afterwards, using the PowerApps, was that he started to make apps for his classroom. So this app that you can see right now is an app that is managed for his classroom. So he got this list of students' names here, and he can then assess how much the students have understood about the classroom details, and he can take notes on the things that he needs to work on in real time. So he could do this on his iPhone without having to write up a report or talk about the status afterwards. So that significantly saved the time. And he also made this app to allow him to then randomly make teams amongst the classroom. So he could then change these teams into teams by the level of understanding of the students, or he could make it a random so that it'll be spread across evenly amongst the teams. So these were done all in the tip of his fingers, and all of this data was data he could manage himself. It wasn't going to be leaked anywhere to some unknown cloud. It was all done on his control. So what he then ended up was that he started to work on other apps, and he started his 8-bit classroom by taking a 1-year leave off from elementary school, and he decided he would spend more time working on making apps for education. So his plan was after 1 year, he will have a set of skills and these set of apps, which will allow every teacher and students to then be empowered through this set of applications that he built. But actually, when he was working with the community, because Microsoft provides this Power users community, and he was asking questions and also in return providing answers to other questions that was being posted into the community. Well, his commitment and contribution to the community was then highlighted by our president of the business applications group called James Phillips. And he was contacted for an interview about what kind of apps he had made. And he had made apps that was actually beyond the imagination of our product team. And it was doing things that was beyond what was believed that could only be done in PowerApps. And after 15 minutes during the interview, he then got asked to meet Bill Gates. And he actually had a face-to-face session with Bill Gates, expressing about what he had made through PowerApps. And in the end, he was actually offered to work as a program manager in Microsoft. And now he actually is in Microsoft, spreading the word and this passion of Power Platform around the world. So he's now in Seattle working and spreading this motion. So this is kind of extreme case, I suppose, but it's not just these two stories that's been highlighted. There's plenty of other stories that's actually provided through Power Platform, which is enabling more and more people to become capable through technology. So, okay, then you've probably got this question of, okay, what happens to professional developers? Are we going to lose our jobs? And that's completely not true. And we have this belief of increasing the developer velocity. So this developer velocity is split into 3 themes: to build productively, and second point is to collaborate globally and securely, and also to scale innovation. So in terms of building productivity, obviously we have a set of tools like Visual Studio or Visual Studio IntelliCode, which kind of AI assisted and infused to help you out with the development to make a faster development and more productivity. We also have Visual Studio Live Share that allows you to real-time collaborate development with other developers around the world as well. We also have this collaboration, obviously, GitHub, which we now have acquired 2 years ago. And also in terms of the scaling innovation, we also have Microsoft Azure, which is now deployed to 54 regions worldwide and with over 90 sets of compliance certifications. So we obviously offer a wide range of services with Azure, but we also actually have a Power Platform as a tool that we can collaborate with Azure. And this Power Platform is supported by a really strong community. And in fact, how active we are in terms of community members, we actually have more than 1 million people around the world now contributing to this Power Platform community. And we have these people called champions. In particular, we highlighted, like the video that I showed you today about Summit. He's in the photo on the top, the left-hand side. But we have all the other people who has experienced some similar experiences through the Power Platform. So we have this community vision of paying it forward. In fact, in Japan, we actually have a very strong community of Power Platform Day, which occurs twice every year. So we just had one in December in the winter 2019, and that actually had over 250 physical attendees for this event. And and not just in Japan, but we have this global strong community around the world who really loves the Power Platform. If you go into the Twitter and actually search for hashtag Paradox, you'll find a whole set of wide variety of people who has high passion towards the Power Platform. So I want to move on about this vision of working with having the pro developers working together with the citizen developers. So to have these two work together, we have these set of developers working on the PowerApps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. You can actually have the pro developers working on the Azure side of things, and have the people consume whatever the services that's developed for Azure to then be consumed using PowerApps and Power Automate, empowering everyone to become a developer. So we have a really good example here of a company called Schlumberger, where we have over 100,000 employees worldwide, with over 85 countries around the world. So one of the first apps that they focused on was to talk about their health care of their employees. So what they did was to build this running management app where people could post how many miles they have or kilometers they have actually ran and post it into this app. And within 2 weeks of setting this up, it actually came into 22,000 kilometers in total around the world. And by 1 year after that, these apps were deployed, it actually went to 400,000 kilometers. So based on this app that they had built, they then started using this as a tool, as a way of educating newcomers to Schlumberger and to replicate this app and use it as newcomers training as well. So why they were so effective was because of this collaboration between the business users and also the IT teams. So as you can see in this photo here, there's actually 3 different sets of personas. From the left, we have Lad, who is the IT administrator at Schlumberger. We also have Alan Chine in the middle, who is a citizen developer. And we also have Ken, who is actually a pro developer here. So in terms of the growth, we actually had over 11,000 flows and 19,000 apps developed through PowerApps and Power Automate just within Schlumberger. And that's how big the strength of this, that's how powerful that this platform could be, provided this collaboration between the citizen developers and the pro developers. So the changes here is to take away here today is that if you have this traditional method of end users requesting the management to have a business transformation, and then have the management talk to the IT pro developers and developers to actually make some solutions, and then have the approval from the upper management or the leadership team to fund that, it's going to take a really long time for the digital transformation to be in effect. So what Power Platform does is actually changes the culture of the company like Schlumberger and allows end users to collaborate directly with the developers and IT pros, where the IT pros would then provide the support and the necessary governance and administration to provide the environments, but have the end users and the business users to develop those solutions themselves. So that's the kind of the transformation culture that it could change as well using the Power Platform. Okay, so if there's any questions, I will look at the tweets and also any of the live streams from YouTube. If you leave any comments, I'll be able to answer them as well. So just to let you know, the hashtag for today, going back to the first slide, is MS Tech Night. So if you tweet with this hashtag MS Tech Night, I'll be looking into that, and I'll be answering questions and following it up. Okay, so what I'll do now is to start with the hands-on. So the hands-on steps here is provided in this URL, aka.ms/glug-tokyo2020-03-en. So if you access this, it will show you the steps of the hands-on. So I'm going to be screen sharing step by step on how to firstly start up PowerApps and also to sign up on Azure. For those of you who don't have Azure environments or PowerApps environments, you can do this all free of charge. So I want to do that step by step first. Okay, so if you can open up your browser And you can use any browser of your choice. You can use Edge, you can use Internet Explorer, or Google Chrome. My suggestion is to use Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, the latest version. It has the best compatibilities over Internet Explorer. So if you could use that. And the first thing we're going to do is to is to sign up for the PowerApps. So PowerApps have this capability of PowerApps Community Edition. So if you can go to, just check. So if you can go to the community website called powerapps.microsoft.com, and there's actually this community plan. So this link is already in the hands-on that I just sent you the link with. So here, powerapps.microsoft.com, en-us community plan. From here, you can sign up for a new environment, which is free of charge, completely for individual use. So anyone can learn about the Power Platform for free, using all of the capabilities as provided in the paid version as well. So the first thing you need to do is to click on here saying Get Started Free. Click on that. And it will ask you for your email address. So if you can use some email address that's not your Gmail or Hotmail, so you can't use any of the free version of an email. You need to use your work account or as such, or a custom domain if you have one. You need that to log in. So for my sake, I'm going to be using a temporary email for now. Okay. Right, so this is my random email address I just got. And if I click on sign up, it will then ask me, did you get your email address from the company? And you need to click yes. It may prompt you with an request to set up an authentication. So it may ask you, you need to send in, you need to fill in your, your phone number. And it will send you a text message, or it might phone you up, depending on how you've asked. You selected for your environment for authentication. So once you've done that, you then need to fill in your details here. So just type in your name and your password of your choice. And once you've done that, you also need to probably type in the verification code that's sent to this email address here. So you just need to type in the verification code. It's usually about 6 digits long. So I'm just going to type in mine. And you can tick or untick as you wish, and then click on Start to sign up. And that's what you have to do. So in my environment, I've already set this up. So I'm going to use a different environment. But that's the sign up steps. Okay, so that's the first step of signing up. So now, once you've signed up, you now have this community edition of PowerApps. So the next step is to register for Azure. So to register for Azure, just open up another tab and go to azure.microsoft.com. And as you can see here, you can click on this button, Start Free. And it will ask you again, so just click on Start Free again. And then you'll be prompted to use your Microsoft account or your GitHub account. So if you don't have a Microsoft account, you can create one for free. So let me just sign mine out because I signed up in my personal environment. So let me just do that for a sec. Okay, let me try again. So go to Azure, start free. Oh, I'm still logged in, so let me just sign out again. Okay, I'll make a new in private window. Okay, so go to azure.microsoft.com and click on start free again, and then it will prompt you for this new screen asking you to sign in with your Microsoft account or your GitHub account. So here you can type in your existing login, or you can type in your Microsoft account, or you can click here and then sign in with your GitHub as well, whichever you prefer. So I'm just going to, hang on. Use my account temporarily for now. So once you signed in correctly, what you now need to do is to fill in the details of your name and pass and such as again. So in my case, I've already filled in all the details about my name and everything. So now it's asking me to verify via phone so that it can test if I'm a human or not. So I've now got this number. You can click on text me or call me. You get this SMS message. You should text me. Click on call me if it's if you want a physical phone call. Once you've done that, you also need to fill in your verification by card. So I'm just going to click that. And it's probably giving me now an SMS message. Okay. And verify code. And it will ask you now for identity verification by card. So I've already got one, but you can then fill in the details if you haven't got one. Like as such, you'll need a credit card, but you won't get charged for it. So once you've done that, go to agreement and then click agree, and you then have the Azure environment. So that's the steps for signing up to Azure. And you're now prepared to actually start building things. So it looks like there's no questions so far, so I'm going to go to the next step. So the first step is to prepare your Azure environment so you have all the sets of things that you need to build the app. So firstly, you need to go to Azure. So if you signed up, you'll come into this page here called portal.azure.com, and this is the kind of screen you will see. So now you need to go and click on resource groups. In your case, if you have started fresh, you probably won't have any of these resource groups already. So just click on add on the top left corner. And you can just choose a subscription with your ID. And the resource group, you can just type in like an MS OpenTechNet just to make it easy for you to identify which one you've created. And the region, you should choose somewhere that's close to you. If you're in Japan, I suggest using the Japan East. But for people who is from other places around the world, just scroll down and see if you have anything that's close to your area. So for me, I'm in Tokyo, so I'm going to click on Japan East for today. Click on review and create. And click on create again. Let me just make this bigger for easier viewing. Click on create. And now, as I see, the resource group has been created. It's showing up on the top right corner. And I just need to click on go to the resource group. Okay. So the next step is to create a storage space that is temporarily used to store a photo of your face. So the first step is to click on Add on the top left corner. And you can search for all of the Azure services that's provided. So for today, I'm going to add storage. Search for storage, and it shows storage account, blob, file, table, and queue. So I'm going to click here. And as you can see, there's a button create. So just click on that. And it will ask you to fill in the parameters of the details of the storage account. So I'm going to name this something that's easy to remember. I'm just going to name it MS Open Tech Demo. So this has to be, oh, sorry, it can't be uppercase. MS Open Tech Demo. And maybe my date of today. Okay, so I've got a tick mark. So this has to be something unique. So you can't use the same name that I'm using right now. You need to use something else. You can then choose the location. Again, I would suggest you choose something that's close to you. In my case, Japan East. And the performance, you just need the standard version, otherwise it gets expensive. And you just need to choose this replication is set to locally redundant storage. For production environments, you might want something higher. But for this case, since it's just a normal standard hands-on, I'm just going to use the local redundant storage. And access tier is to be set to cool. Okay, so if I click on review and create, it'll populate all of the details I just selected. Just check and make sure you haven't got any settings wrong, and just click on create. Okay, now the deployment is in progress. So what we're doing here is that we're providing this storage space for your app that you're going to be developing later on to save your photo of the facial recognition app. Actually, I haven't actually talked to you about what we're going to be building today. But today we're going to be developing a facial recognition app without writing a single line of code. Fascinating stuff, isn't it? So I hope it's done. Yes, the deployment has succeeded. So on the top right corner, just click on go to resource. And you see this storage account that has just been created. And the first thing you need to do is to basically make this like a folder. We call this containers in Azure. Click on containers. We don't have any containers at the moment, so we're just going to click on the plus container. Name this as photo. Pretty simple. This name can be duplicated with everyone else as well, since it's already unique. Just name it photo and click on create. Okay, so now we've created a storage called photo. Make sure you take a note of that. I suggest you use something like Visual Studio Code for that. But if you don't have it, you can use your standard Windows Notepad as well. I'll still do the job. Okay, so on the left-hand side, now you need to do copy a thing called the access keys. So this access key is like a password for you. And this is unique for everyone. Don't copy mine. It's not going to work for you. But just take note of this storage account name. So take a memo of that. And also this first one called key one. So this key is like basically a password for those of you who don't know too much about Azure. Just make note of that on your memo as well. Okay, so now we've prepared the storage space. Now we need to add a new facial recognition service called Cognitive Service Face API. So to do that, we're going to go to Home and go to this MS Open Tech Night Glug Tokyo. That's the resource group we just created just about a few minutes ago. So as you can see here, we've just had the storage account. So now we're going to add a new service. Click Add. Search for Face, and it will come up with the first one called Face. This is the Face API. And it's pretty straightforward. Just click on Face. Sorry, not click on Face, click on Create. And now you just got to populate the fields again. So here, just have a similar name, Open Tech Night Demo. That would do. Choose nearest location again. I'm going to choose, I think, Japan. East. Yep. And also the pricing tier. So you got two pricing tiers, but the one called F0 is actually free of charge for the first time use. So if you already have a Face API, for those of you who's already using Azure, you can't create another one with a F0. So just don't create this at all. Just use the one that you already have existing. But for those of you who is new to Azure, just choose the pricing tier with F0 and it's free of charge. So this will be created in the same resource group. So click on create. And after a couple of seconds, we should have the cognitive services Face API being deployed to your environment. Okay, so it's deployed. So if you go to the resource, you'll again see this key one. So this is again your password for your Face API. Don't copy mine. It's no use for you. Copy that, paste it onto your notepad. Make sure you know which keys are which. It will start to get confusing otherwise. And once you've copied that, you're done. Your Azure environment is now ready. So now we'll start building the facial recognition app from PowerApps. Okay, so you can keep this as it is if you want, but I'm just going to open this new tab. And from here, you could either go directly or type in office.com if you've just signed up, and you'll probably see PowerApps showing up here. For those of you who's already an Office user, you'll see some other bits and pieces showing up as a different services, but you should be seeing PowerApps also in this set of services. So you can click on here and start off PowerApps, or you could go to make.powerapps.com. Pretty easy to remember, and you can access here. So this is the PowerApps initial screen. And if you've signed up today for this community edition environment, what happens is on the top right corner, you'll see your name saying your name's environment. Make sure it's set to that. If you're in an environment where there's already PowerApps in your company, you may be seeing some other different environments, but make sure you're using your name's environment. And you should see another message saying this is an individual environment and not meant for production use. And that's true. So, okay, so now we'll start building the app itself. And the beauty of this PowerApps is that you only need a browser to develop anything. So you don't need any Visual Studio, you don't need Eclipse like other services do. You just need to click on from here. So what we're going to do is to build a Canvas app from blank. Click on here. And we're going to name this app facial recognition app. And today I'm going to use the phone version. You can choose between tablet or phone. And you're going to click on create. So now, as you've seen, there's a new tab that has just been popped up. And this is called the PowerApps Studio. Okay, so the PowerApps Studio has just spun up, and you can see, welcome to PowerApps Studio. All we're going to do is click on skip. We don't need to see this message. And this is the PowerApps Studio. It looks pretty much like PowerPoint, but also with some bits of Excel. So as you can see in the middle, this is the actual canvas. That's why it's called a Canvas app. And in here, you're going to add bits and pieces of components. And when you want to do something with it, you can use this formula bar here to set up some logic. And it's pretty much very close to Excel. In fact, about 50% of the equations that we provide in PowerApps is exactly the same as Excel. So if you know Excel, it's going to be very easy for you. If you don't know Excel, it's okay. You still got a wizard that will help you guide which equation to use as well. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have this thing called a tree view, which shows you if you add different bits of components, it will start forming this tree inside each of the screens. So the first step we're going to do is to start building out different screens. So the first step is to create a thing called a person group. so on the screen, it's right now labeled as screen 1, but if you start adding screens, it will say screen 2, screen 3, and you wouldn't know which screen is which. So first thing we need to do is to rename this. Go to the left-hand side of the screen. You see the 3 dots next to the screen 1. Click on it and click on rename. So in here, just click on that actual highlighted part and rename it to something else. So I want to name this person, group, add screen. Something descriptive will be easy to remember. And just as a tip, you should add words like screen if it's a screen, a box if it's a box at the end or the front, so that you know which one's which. Because each of these names also have to be unique throughout the whole of PowerApps that you just built here. So that's one thing to note of. So that's the first screen. Now we're going to add bits of services from Azure that we just signed up to. So to do that, go to the left-hand side. You see here this cylinder-looking thing. This is called data source. Click on here, and you'll see some entities and a thing called connectors. Now, if you click here and search and start typing in face, you'll see that there's actually a thing called the face API, which is exactly what we are looking for. So if you click on here and click on add a connection, it will ask you to request for the API key. So if you look on the, if you go back to your notepad or your Visual Studio Code that you placed all your API keys, for folks who have forgotten what the keys were, go back to your Azure portal and open up the resource group that you created today, and go and open up this face API, this happy smiling face. Yep. And copy this key here, for those of you who haven't got the key. So here in this API key, just paste the key and click on connect. There you go. So now Face API is now connected to this PowerApps. So this PowerApps is now, you don't actually need to write any of the coding to integrate your Face API with, which you normally do with developers. So usually you need to write the HTTP request and authentication and bits and pieces like that. But with this PowerApps, it actually handles all of the authentication for you. So you don't need to write any bit of code whatsoever to integrate with Face API. How wonderful, isn't it? So that's the first step. And then so now the next thing we need to do is to start adding bits of components. And you have two ways of doing this. One traditional way of doing this, if you aren't, if you are new to PowerApps, is to go to Insert, and then click on Text, and click on Text Input, and it will come up with the text input screen here, as you can see, and it's automatically populated saying text input as well as a default. So we're going to rename this text box, going back to the tree view here. As you see inside this person group add screen, you see that text input 1 has now been added in the same screen. So first we need to click on the 3 dots, click rename, and we're going to name this the person group ID input. Okay. And we need to also change the property of this person group ID input. First thing is to get rid of this default, so it doesn't show up automatically, and also use a thing called hint text. Hint text will then help the end user to then be able to know what to fill in. So here we can set a message saying set the person ID here, person group ID here, sorry, like so. Okay. And we probably want a label as well. So I'm going to move this a little bit down, just drag and drop like you do with PowerPoint, and add a text. And now this time we're going to use the one called label. Okay, so I'm going to drag this drop here, and I'm going to change this text saying person group ID. There you go. Now, what you can then do is to also add another text box and also the label again. Now you have two ways of doing this. One is to do exactly the same steps again, or you could actually press Control, select the two, press Control C, Control V to do copy and paste, or you could just right click, copy, and right click, paste, and it will do exactly the same thing. So now we can move this here. And this time I'm going to rename all these parts. So firstly, here, the group ID input should be person group name input. And you should change the hint text to set the person group name here. And also change the text here. You can double click on this and say person group name. And there you go. Okay. Now we just need one more button called the button. Slightly confusing, but if you click here and just drag it somewhere around, maybe say here in the middle. And what we'll say is to we'll rename this button called the not button 1, but to the person group submit button. So we'll click here, click on rename, and type person group submit button. Okay. And for this button, we don't want to name it this button because that's kind of hard to know what this does. So I'm going to rename this to different text and name this register. So I'm going to double click on this and type in register. That's all you have to do to change the text of the button. Okay, so what you then need to do is to set up some equations on this button to actually process something. So to do that, you need to look into this equation bar. So as you can see here right now, it's set to on select. So this button has a whole range of different properties that you can change the settings. So for example, here, if you change the fill and change this color to like say 100, you can see that it's just turned purple. So you can change the equations like such. And with no doubts, we also have this property called on select. And this on select, what it does is that you basically can run some function when you click the on select button. So in this case, I'm going to start typing this equation that will then create the person group in Face API. So I want to start typing Face. As you can see, just like you would do if you're a pro developer, you have an Intel license on the Visual Studio, you have a similar experience with PowerApps as well. So now I just typed in FA, and it already immediately has registered that we need a Face API. So here, I'm going to use this equation called face API dot create person group. Okay. And now we need to find out what the person group ID is and what the name is. So you can see the syntax here for the equation. And what you need to do is to specify these controls. And it's very simple, just like as if you would specify which cell you would do on Excel. So in our case, we need to get whatever is filled in for here for the person group ID. So what we're going to do is type in person group ID input. And as you can see, the screen highlight is also circled around this control. And we also need to text form that. So we just need to type dot. And you have all these properties that you can get information from. But for our case, we're going to use text, which means that it's the text of whatever has been filled in here. And then comma, just like you do in Excel. And now this time it's the name. So we're going to type in person group name input. And then click on dot and text again. And that's it. So by now clicking this button, it will now register for the person group ID and the person group name. I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. Okay, so one issue here that you probably may have noticed is that even if it's blank, you can press this button right now. And to disable that from happening, what you can do is to change this property in the register button. Click on the on select here, top left corner and change this to the display mode. And right now it's set to edit. So no matter what happens, this button can be pressed. But what we can do is to then set up an equation. So what we're going to do is say if this person group ID input dot text is blank. So to find out if it's blank, there's an equation called is blank. So this would check if it's blank. And if this is true, it will disable it. So you can then put a comma saying display mode is going to be disabled. If it's not blank, it's going to be editable. So by doing that, as you can see now it has it's looking at this control here, and now it's registered. So there's one issue here. We still haven't got the check logic for here for the person group name. So we're just going to add an extra step as well, saying, okay, this is all very good, but we can just format this text to make it look slightly easier for you to see. We can add an equation inside an equation, just like you would do in Excel, like an hands-on. Sorry, just like you would do in Excel. So type in or. So if this person group ID input is blank, or person group name input is blank, then it will be disabled, or otherwise it will be edited. So now what you can do is to click on format text here. Now it's actually a lot easier to see, saying if it meets one either of these logic, then it will be disabled. And there you go. So it looks slightly sophisticated if you're not used to the if equations in Excel as well. But for those of you who's a programmer or a pro developer, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Okay. So that's the first step. And then what we also need to do is to, once it's registered, we need to be able to move to this new screen. And so in this here, we can actually write multiple equations here as well. And to do that, we can just put a semicolon and type in the equation here saying navigate. Navigate is a function that allows you to move from one screen to the other. So we'll later on create this new screen called person add screen. And we can also change the animation as well. So right now it's an error because it doesn't exist, but you don't need to worry about it. So as you can see, PowerApps, you don't need to actually compile anything. It automatically checks for any syntaxes or errors. So you just need to start typing in, and it will actually show up as red if there's an issue. And if you actually move your cursor, you see that there's several issues, and you can see the details of what the issue is. Okay. And I just realized we shouldn't be doing this in display mode, but to add this in the onSelect. Sorry. So you should do this in the onSelect. Okay. So now the next step is to add this person add screen. Slightly confusing. And to do that, you need to go to the top left corner, click on the new screen, choose blank. And name this screen as person add screen. Okay, so now what we're going to do is to add the second data source from Azure. As you remember, it's an Azure blob storage. So what we're going to do is to go to the left-hand side, go to data sources. From here, we're going to type blob. And you see there's an Azure blob storage. And click on that and click on add a connection. And as you can see here on the right hand side, it asks you for the Azure Storage account name and the Azure Storage account access key. So what we need to do is to get whatever you had memoed, hopefully, in your Visual Studio or your Notepad. If you haven't, you can go back to your Azure portal, go to the resource group you created, go to that storage account you created, and go to access keys again. So in the storage account name, just copy that. You can press this button actually on the right to copy it to your clipboard. Go back to the tab and paste the account name. And then you need to also copy the key, which is this one here. Go back and fill in the access key. And once you've done that, click on connect. And it says it asks you to have a premium license, but you don't need to worry anything about that because this environment is allows you to use premium connectors as well. Okay, so we have now two data sources, Face API and Azure Blob Storage. And what we're going to do now is to add a camera control. And to do that, you may imagine it sounds really sophisticated, but it's really not. All you have to do is to go to the Insert tab, click on the media, and click on camera. Or you can go to this plus button here, which is also Insert as well. You can go to media here and choose camera. You can use either way you want. You can actually drag and drop. It'll give you the camera control. And the first time if you've added, it'll ask you for the permission to use the camera. Click on allow, and it will automatically show up the camera. There you go. Okay, so you're seeing my very boring looking camera, a back of a camera on my Surface. And you need to rename this to name. So to go and rename it, go to the left-hand side, click on the tree view. And as you can see, the name is right now set to camera 1. So again, just click here, click on rename. And all you have to do is to rename this to person add cam. Okay, now it's renamed. The other thing you also want to do is to add a drop-down. And why I suggest this is because if you have multiple cameras, you would want to have this feature to be able to switch between the 2 cameras or the 3 cameras in case of you have an iPhone as such with multiple cameras. So from here in the input, click on drop-down, or on the left-hand side, you can also choose insert and choose the input from here, whichever way you prefer. I prefer this new way. So drag and drop, as you can see, it's just added this drop down. I'm just going to move this to the top, or maybe, I don't know, make it slightly smaller and make it a little bit subtle. Okay, and I'll change this, firstly, this items thing. So items is right now populated with this drop down sample. So it's populated with the sample data. So instead, I'm going to now change this to sets of numbers. And to do that, you just need this brackets and have numbers around up to 1, 2, or 3. Start from 0 because that's how it works. And also set the default property. Scroll up, choose the default, and set this to 0. And there you go. That's it. And if you're not satisfied with the size of the camera, you can always just drag and drop, and you can have it a little bit bigger as such. Okay, now what we got to do is to also make sure that this camera and this drop-down list is linked together. Right now, it's just 2 sets of 2 different things. So what we got to do is to click on the camera, and you see the property called camera. And this actually is the part that you need to change this. And now all you got to do is to change it to this control. This drop down. As you can see, this drop down is called drop down 1 at the moment. So let's just change this here, rename it, and call it person add camera select. Okay, so going back to this camera, you see its camera is right now set to 0. I'm going to change this to person add cam select dot selected dot value. So now it's going to refer to this drop down here, as you can see. And whenever this changes, it'll automatically change this camera setting as well. So I'm just going to quickly change and show my lovely face. click on 1, and you'll see my the camera has now switched over to the front side. And if I change this to 2, you'll see my infrared working at the moment because Surface has an infrared camera. So I'm going to go back to 0 again, so you don't need to see my lovely face. And now what we need to do is to also change the settings called the stream rate. This is something that enables you to then capture the photos later on. So in this camera, click on the camera control, scroll down, and you see the stream rate. So change this to 100. And then now we'll then add a text box and a label for the person name to register this person, whoever you take a photo of. So from the top left corner, click on text, click on label, just drop this down, and we'll also add and we can name this person name, and we'll also add a new control text input. We'll bring this down a little bit lower, and again change the settings just like you did in this other screen, if you remember. Remove this text input and change the hint text to set person name here. Okay. And you should also change the name of this to person name input. So click on this text box, left click, sorry, on this dots, rename and change this to text name input. And as for the label, rename this to text name label. Okay, great. So now we just need to add one more to register this person. Click on the button to add a new button. Yes, slightly hard to remember what I just said. So add a button here, and we'll name this register. Double click here, register, and we'll name this button called the person submit button. Okay, done. Now what we got to do again is to do something similar to what we've done in the previous page, which was, if you remember, we did something called the Face API create person group. We're going to do something similar for this register button as well. Now, I'm going to, on purpose, write it hand by hand on this set of equations. But if you can't be bothered, what you can do instead is to change, just copy and paste what I have on GitHub instead. That's totally up to you. So on this register, on the top left top corner, the on select right now it's set to false. Delete this, and now I'm going to say, okay, first you can add, by the way, add comments as well. So I'm just going to make this lower and add comments saying, okay, we're going to create a person data. And to do that, if you press Shift and Enter, you can then go to the next line. Type in set person ID. Set is a function that allows you to have a variable defined. So right now we just declare this person ID, and click on comma, and then use the Face API connector. So if I click on Face API dot, and you see create person, and it asks me for the person group ID. All I need to do is to specify that same person group ID input dot text from the previous place, and then to also add person name input dot text from here. Okay, done. Now for the next line, just press again Shift and press Enter twice for a new line. And this time we're going to add a new equation to upload the image for face registration. So here we're going to use that second data source. If you remember the Azure blob storage, if I type on Azure, now as you can see, there's now populated with the Azure related commands. We're going to use the one called Azure create blob. The first one is called a folder path, which is actually the container. For those of you who has forgotten what the folder path or the container is, go back to the Azure portal. You see the overview. And go to the storage account, go to the containers, and you saw that I named it as photo. So going back here, I'm going to name it as photo, comma, and then just name it something random, like learn, should be fine, or temp, totally up to you. And then send the image of the send the image of the image that's being shown right now with this camera control. And to do that, you just need to type in person add cam, because that's what we named as the camera, dot stream. And that's it. So now this equation will allow you to capture whatever is in right now streamed to with the camera control and save it as the name learn.jpg, which is a JPEG file, under the container called photo. And that's how it's done. So now we'll add a new equation again, saying, okay, we're going to generate the URL to register for face registration. And this is needed so that you can have the URL from the Azure blob storage then being sent over to the Face API. And that's how the Face API recognizes the photo. So to do that, we need to again use the set equation, which is to declare a new variable saying learn image URI. Again, this can be something else. It doesn't matter, but I'm just using this for now. And then this time we're going to use Azure blob storage dot create share link by path. And here we'll use photo slash learn dot JPEG. And that's the path of the share link. Okay, now we're finally getting here. The next step is then to register the face from the photo that we just took and stored into the Azure blob storage. And to do that, we just need to type in face API dot add person face. And the ID is person group. Oops, sorry, I just got two brackets. Person group ID input dot text. So that's the ID of the person group, if you remember. And also the person ID dot person ID. And then also the link to that where the image is stored. And to do that, we just use the learn image URI dot web URL. And that's it. So I'm just going to scroll this down a little bit more. So I'm just going to recap what we just did. First step was that we would create this person ID. So what we did was to generate this random ID using the person group ID and the person name. So for example, if I set myself, like if I set it as Taiki, and I have this inside this person group, what I then did next was to store whatever the photo or the image that's being displayed right now to be stored as a new file with a file name called learn in this photo container. And then the third step was then to create a link, a URL for that photo that I just uploaded to this variable called learn image URI. And the fourth step was to register this face as the new face using that person group, same person group ID and a person ID, and also the image of that file. So now it's going to register to the Face API. And then lastly, we need to also add a new equation to move to the face authentication. Oh, sorry, typo here. Authentication screen. And here we'll add a navigate. So navigate is, if you remember, an equation to move from one screen to the other. And we're going to name this the face authentication screen. Obviously, it doesn't exist. That's why it's an error. And we'll use fade as the animation for this specific one. Okay, although it's an error, you don't need to worry about it. Now I'll just quickly close this. And when there's an error, it shows the red circle with a cross on it, but you really don't need to worry about it for now. Just change, if the name is not entered in here, disable it. If you remember from the previous page, we're going to do pretty much exactly the same. Go to the top left corner, change it to, select the button first. Go to the top left corner, change it to display mode. And we're going to say, nope, I'm not going to have it edit all the time, saying if is blank. So what's blank? We're going to use this person name input as blank. Person name input dot text, if that's blank. Then disable it. If not, edit. And there you go. It's now disabled. Okay, so that's the second screen, the person add screen. So what we've done is to create the person group, which is the feature we need to have for Face API. The second step was to create the registration screen for the photo of your face. And the third part is to create the facial recognition screen. So now again, we're going to add a new blank. And this time we're going to name this blank screen name called, rename, face authentication screen. Okay, and then we'll add a drop-down box, input, drop-down, and we'll name this authenticate cam select. So again, this is pretty much similar to what we had here with this selection here. So we're going to change this here, click on the drop-down box, go to the items property, and change it to numbers 0, 1, 2, 3. And also make it smaller. Okay, and then also add another camera control. So go to input, click on, go to media from the insert, go to camera. I'm just gonna move this little box downwards. We can make this a little bit bigger as such. And here we go. And again, change the settings again. And this time I'm gonna name this camera, not camera 2, but authenticate cam. And the value of the camera should be the authenticate cam select dot selected dot value. And again, just to make sure, if you press Alt, you can actually switch it as well, change it as well. You can test it out. And then also change the camera's stream rate to 100. And that's it. And now we're going to add a new button here, place it around here. And here we're going to name this recognize face. And for here, we need to rename this button 3, rename again, and say authenticate submit button. Okay, so now for this authenticate submit button, we need to again type in some bunch of equations. And I'm going to again go for it step by step. So the first step is to upload the image. for the facial recognition. And to do that, we need to use the Azure Blob Storage connector again and create a block Bob like we just did in the other screen. This time, we'll also have it the same folder, the photo folder, or whatever name you named in this container, if you remember. And comma, and then this time we'll name it something else, authenticate.jpg. Again, so you need to have double quotations for that as well. And the photo of that, the source of it comes from the authenticate cam.stream. Okay, that's the first line. So we've now have this process to upload it to Azure Blob with the name authenticate.jpg into this photo container. The second step is to generate, again, the URL for facial recognition. Image. And to do that, use the set equation again, and we'll say it's the authenticate image URI. And again, we use the Azure Blob Storage dot create share link by path. And this time it'll be photo/authenticate.jpg. And that's the second line. Third one is then to retrieve the image from the Face API, saying, okay, Face ID data. And we use this Face API function called detect. So detect is the feature in the Face API where the AI detects the image of the photo. So in here, we'll have the authenticate image URI dot web URL. So what we just did was we saved it into Azure Blob, got the link to that photo, and that photo is then sent to the web Face API to be used for detection. And we just need the magic setting return Face ID true to make sure that the Face ID of whatever was detected comes back. Then the fourth equation is to obtain the recognized results. And to do that, we also need to use another variable called face verify. Again, this name doesn't have to be this, but I'm going to use this for today. Face API dot we use a thing called verify. So we detect, identify if there's the same face ID, and in this verify step, we then find out if there's actually a person that was registered previously. So we use the face ID data dot face ID. So why we're using this face first equation is because if you have multiple faces, you may end up with multiple face IDs. So just for the sake of this hands-on, we're going to assume there's only going to be one face that's going to be detected. So go to face ID, and we need to have the person group ID input dot text, and also the person ID dot person ID. So this would then ensure if this the photo we took in this previously, whether it's the same person that is being taken now. So that's what we're doing. And then lastly is to store the result to a temporary table. So now we're using a feature called collect. Collect is basically an equation that stores any data that you want into a thing called collection. So collection is a feature in PowerApps, which is basically a temporary storage that is used and saved on a device, not locally, but in memory. So if you turn off your computer, or if you turn off the browser, or if you close off your app in your iPhone or your Android, it'll disappear. So this is a really, really temperate way of storing things. But for for the sake of this demo, this hands-on, we're using this instead of fixed data source. So here in the collect, we're going to name this the authenticate log. And in here, we're going to store the date time, which is now. So when this was run, and authentication results saying if face verify is identical, we say face is verified. If not, we will name this the unknown face. Oops, sorry, and comma. And match rate is face verify dot confidence, and close curly bracket, and close. Okay, let's see what I've gone wrong here. I think I missed out something here. Let me just check. Sorry, that's why. There's meant to be a semicolon here. That's why. Okay, so here it is. This is the equation. I'm just tidying this up. Okay, that looks tidier. Okay, so that's the process. So just recapping. So we sent the photo to Azure. We got the URL, retrieved the image, saying, okay, detect this face, and check if this face ID that we detected is same to the ID that we initially registered here as the person. And the results will then be stored into this temporary table called the authenticate log. And we'll also at the same time keep in track of the date time. They're also keeping track of the authentication results, saying if this results of the face verification was identical, we'll say the face is verified. If not, we'll say it's an unknown face. And we'll also, just for the sake of it, find out what was the confidence percentage of the face as well. Okay, so closing this is probably the hardest part of this whole demo. The next part is then to create two labels. One is to show the authentication results. So we go to text, click on label, drag and drop here. And we'll name this label, you can double click by the way, just in case you want to know. Double click on the label 3 and we can name this as the authenticate result label. And we'll also have another label. Bring it down here, saying the match rate label. Okay, so we've got two pieces of label here. So the first one, we're going to change the settings here. Right now, the text is set to text. I'm going to change this into an if equation. I'm going to delete whatever is here, saying if the face verification is identical, we'll say its face was verified. If not, It's an unknown face. Okay, and right now, because there's no results, it says it's an unknown face. And then the second text, we'll change the settings, saying concatenate. Saying confidence is text. We'll round this to the nearest whole number. Face verify dot confidence. Multiply that by 100 because it's in decimals, and then round it to the nearest number, and we'll also nearest 2 decimal places, and we'll also add the percentage mark. So right now it's 0%. Okay, and we'll also align this to the right. So if you go to home on the left top corner, click on here, click on right, then there you go. It's aligned to the right. Okay, and now we'll show the results screen of all the previous recognition that we've done. And to do that, we need to go to the top left corner, click on new screen. This time we're going to use the one called the blank again. And the name of this, we'll rename this screen 1 to the results screen. And what we need to do is to show up with a list of all the results. And to do that, the easiest way is to go to the top left corner, go and insert, click on the gallery, and choose the one that says blank vertical. And in here, you can select which data source. And this time we're going to use this authenticated log, which is the temporary storage, as I explained to you in the previous screen, that temporarily stores the results. In here, what we can then do is to choose the columns and the layout. Right now it's selected as blank. Click on that. And you choose the one that says title, subtitle, and body. And what we need to do is to also rename this gallery as the result gallery. So right now it's named as the gallery 1. So we're going to change this to result gallery. Okay, so here, if we go to the fields and click on edit, you see it's populated here as such like that. We're going to change this body 1 to the match rate, change the subtitle 1 to the of results, and the third one, the title, to be the date at time. Okay, and now it has changed. And for the part with the body 1, it's hard to see. So just click on the body 1 on the left bottom tree here, and change the text here, saying concatenate. Again, this is to join the bits and pieces, saying match text and round by this item dot match rate multiplied by 100 because it's a decimal, and round it to the 2 decimal places, and also add the percentage mark. So what is happening here is for every item that's stored in this gallery, we'll multiply by 100 for the decimal, round it to the 2 decimal places, and join it all together with the word match and percentage. That's what we're doing here. Right now, you won't see any results. We haven't run it once yet. And finally, we're going to add the home screen. It sounds a little bit weird not having a home screen in the beginning, but we can always just add it later. So now we're going to add a new screen, add a new blank one. And we'll rename this screen 1 to home screen. And we'll just add a simple label, place it around here, position it so that you go to home, alignment to the center, maybe. That's totally up to you. Change to maybe bold for easy viewing. Change it to size 48. That's like you do in a Word document. and rename this to facial recognition app. Okay. And we'll add a couple of buttons. Go to insert button. We'll place this around here, and we'll call it registration. And for this button, we can then rename this called move person add SC button. So it just we'll have this button to move to the person add screen. And also change the on select here to the navigate function. So navigate to the person group add screen. And we'll transfer to fade. Okay, so once we've done the registration, I will also add the authentication button. And to do that, go to the top left corner, click on the button, place it here below the registration, and this time we'll call it recognition. And for this one, we'll for the on select, we'll say navigate again, but this time to the face authentication screen. And we can use the fade as the animation. But obviously, for the recognition part, we need to make sure that the person name input is automatically, not automatically, but is filled in before pressing this button. So we can go to here and go to the display mode. And change the settings as such. So type in if, again, is blank. And that's for the person name input that we created. Dot text. We'll set this display mode to disabled if it's not filled in, and enable it if it is filled in. So right now we can't use the recognition feature because it's not registered yet. And for this button here, instead of naming it button 5, we'll name this as the move face authentication SC button. Okay. And we'll also add the third button for the results of the past history. So here we'll have history. And for this on select, we'll have the navigate function. Go to the results screen and fade. Sorry, fade, not face. Yep. And that's it. And we're actually nearly there, but I'm going to have a 5-minute break just before we finish it, since we just did a whole lot of work all in one go. Okay, so I'm going to start the rest of it. So going into, I think if I remember, yeah, the history part, we just added the button says that we're going to rename this button here. And to do that, we're just going to double click here and rename this to move result. Hang on, move result SC button. And we've finished adding all the buttons. So now we're going to add one more set of buttons with a back button. And to do that, we're going to go to the person group add screen on the top left corner. And from here, we're going to go to the icons on the top right. And you can scroll down, you actually see a whole load of different set of icons. So if you scroll down, there's actually one called back, and that's the one we're going to choose. Click on the back button here. And place it somewhere maybe around here for a good UX. Just the one tip on the UX here. When you're using this app on the iPhone or the Android app, your thumb is obviously positioned on the bottom side of your phone. So if you place your icon on the top, you actually have a bad UX because it's actually hard for your thumb to reach to the top. So it's good to place your back button on the bottom side if possible. So for this back button, we do have a way of changing this to use the navigate, but it's actually an easier way of doing things. And we can actually use back equation and also to set with the transition here. And how this is done is that it actually goes back to the previous screen, basically here. Automatically, it actually recognizes what was the previous screen. So you don't need to worry about where to send this back. So once you've created this, just rename this as back icon. And you could just right click on this, copy, and paste it to every single page of the app. So we can place it here. Sorry. Go to face authentication, you can place it here as well. And go to the results screen, place it here as well, like such. And that's it. So now we're remaining this home screen, and you actually need to change this home screen to move to the top. So how PowerApps works is that whatever is placed on the very top of this list is the home screen for the app. So right now, this home screen right now is actually not the home screen, but the person group added screen is right now the home screen. So we need to move this up. Just click on the three dots, click on move up, and move up. And now we placed the home screen to the top. And that's all there is to it. Now we can finally actually try out this app. Go to the top right corner and you see this play button here. And here we have the facial recognition app. Hooray. So let's just try doing this. So we're going to click on registration. Set the person group ID here. This can be random. Just I'm going to put it 1, 2, 3, 4. And my name. Sorry, no. Taiki's group. And we'll register this. Once done, let's move to the next screen. And as you can see, this camera is placed at the back. So I'm going to move this to myself, just number 1, and put my name and register. Okay, so now it's registered. Let's try out if the face is recognized. I'm going to switch this camera to number 1 and click on recognize face button. Okay, and it doesn't look as if it's working. Let's go back here and see what the issue is. I got the wrong API key. Okay, that's good. So what I need to do, apparently I got the wrong API key. Let's see what I've done wrong. Let's go to the MS Open Ignite demo, key and endpoints. That's the key. I want to copy this. I'm not sure what happened here, but let's go to data sources, face API. I want to remove this and try again. So type in face API, add another connection, this key, This time, hopefully it'll work. Click on connect. And done. Okay, let's try again. So I'm going to go to the home screen again. Press start. Click on registration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Register. And register my face. Hopefully it's working. And let's click on recognize. Nope, it's still not working. Okay, that's pretty bad. I wonder what's happening. Oh, and use the correct regional API endpoint for your resource. Okay, so I must be using the wrong endpoint. This is the endpoint. Let's just copy this and see if it works this time. Okay, file. It's not the file. I'm starting to get a little bit worried here. Let's remove this. See if it works. Go to face API. Another one API key. Let me just leave this for a second. Place that site URL to here and copy the name here and connect. Okay. Let's go back to the home screen and try again. Registration. Okay, I'm going to do number 6. Register. And register myself. And recognize face. And still not working. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Let's see. That's strange. I wonder what have I done wrong. Okay, I've got it now. Let me try again, one last time. Okay, so delete this face API. Type in face, go to face API. I've got plenty of face APIs now. Add a connection. The API key, sorry, I was right. Go back, copy whatever's here in the key and endpoint. Copy this and place this in the API key. And the endpoint, sorry, I shouldn't have included this HTTPS part. That's why it was wrong. That's probably why. Let me just double check on the docs page. Okay. And let's see if it works this time. Okay, it's meant to be working. Okay, what I can do is to instead create the change the location of this. So what I'll do is to delete this. Okay, it has been deleted. So I'll add the face API, create, open demo, and I'll use the West US actually. And see if this works. Create. Okay, and go to the resource. Okay, let's try again. So copy this key. And I'll remove this face API. Have another API. Add as a connection. It's a new API key, connect. And see if this works. Yes, it's working. Finally. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go and start from the beginning again. Go to registration. I'm just going to name this with a new number. Click on register. I'm going to register my face. Okay, and now I'm going to try and recognize my face. Finally, see, now that's showing up as face verified with a confidence of 89.75. So if I go back and go to the history, I see I've my miserable failure for the last 4 attempts. And on the bottom, I see my face has verified. Finally, it has worked. Okay, so that's all of the hands-on. What you have to do is now save this app. Go to File on the top left corner. And let's just choose some lovely looking photo, smiley face here. I'm going to make this yellow, and I'm going to save this app. And by just clicking save, it actually automatically saves it into the cloud without having you to put it into the App Store or anything. Now you can actually use this. And when you actually make some modifications, for example, if I have this home screen, if I just change this slightly, and if I save this again, what it does is actually keeps the version in control. And if you click on see all versions, what has been done is that it has kept the versions. And as you can see, there's actually publish management as well. So right now, the version 1 is published right now to the environment. But if you click on publish again, it'll then publish with the version 2. So if you go back to here, if we click on publish here and publish this version, and if I go back to this tab here, refresh, you'll see that this version, our version 2, has been published. And you can actually keep all the version management here, just like you would do with an OneDrive or a SharePoint if you're familiar with any of those Office services. So that's how you can manage your versions. And once you click on publish, it actually works on my phone as well. So let's see if it actually does work on my phone. I hope I've got the right environment. And how I'm going to broadcast this is that I'm going to use my camera on my Surface to show you if it shows you in action. So let's see if it works. Okay. So, okay, let's hope this thing works. But okay, I'm going to launch my camera. Okay, so very analog here. So this is my phone, my Android. And this was freshly installed from the App Store on Google Play. So if I click on sign in, it'll pop up with my set of logins here. I'm going to use my top one here for this purpose. And now it asks me to prompt for my password. I'm just going to quickly type it in with my, oop, wrong one. Let's try again. Sign in, Tioshida, and I'm going to change, fill in my password. Okay, I just typed in my password. This is the same password that you just used when you signed up to the community edition of the PowerApps. So click on sign in, and it's now logged. Oh, let's try again. Okay, it's I know why it's not working right now. Okay, it's working. So if I go to my list of apps, I should find the face recognition. Here we go. This one here. If I click on here, and I can actually pin this to home screen as well. And if I click on here, it's launched my app that I just created. It asks for permission to use the camera, so just click on the allow here, and you see the app in action. So if I click on registration, just type in the random bunch of numbers, type in a group name, register. It's now registering to that again. And oh, my camera, hopefully, if I switch this around, my camera works. And I'm Taiki, register myself. It keeps authenticating because I have multiple accounts. Okay, so now this time I'm going to try and recognize my face. Let's see if it works. Keeps authenticating. It's probably because I have, it keeps on going white. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you see that it's now working on my Android phone, and that's how it works. So I hope this hands-on has been useful for you and has quickly given you understanding of how PowerApps and how you can integrate with professional services like Azure as well. So just to recap, the hands-on steps here is shown in ak.ms Glug Tokyo 2020-03 EN. So if you could access that, that would be great. And if you are more interested about PowerApps, please do feel free to go to the Power Users community. The address is powerusers.microsoft.com. If you access it, you'll see the whole series of the Power Platform community here. You can obviously ask any of the questions in English. Go to the PowerApps community, and you can ask questions, and you can see all the tips and tricks that the others have come up with around the world. So definitely have a look at here. You will see all this new greatness of the community around the world. And you actually even see community app samples, which you can actually have a look into as well, which has some apps that has been developed and is actually free for everyone else to import and share. So definitely have a look at that as well. Okay, so that's it, folks. Thank you all for attending this online training course. This is one of the first attempts to do it bilingual, so I hope it was okay. Sorry, I screwed up in the end about the Face API, but the tip is to use the West US region. Okay, so thank you all for attending.